So a piece of this now is, what about the Big Ten and the SEC? Okay, we have the Presidential Commission for College Athletics being formed. Nick Saban, co-chair. Texas Tech multi-billionaire mega booster Cody Campbell, co-chair. The Big Ten and the SEC do stand to lose something out of this, right? I'll start you with which one has more to lose. I think it's very obvious the Big Ten would have more to technically lose here out of all of this. And I got some pushback on this from my good friend, Greg Flugar from Peek Around the Corner, who does a great job. It's an awesome channel. You should go subscribe to it right now if you're a college football fan for sure. But we know that both the Big Ten and SEC would sacrifice here under this theoretical Project Rudy sort of formula if we're able to get there, if Cody Campbell can impress upon the president and Congress and whoever else his views as to where college sports should be going. I think Josh Pate actually said it really well. I know there's a lot of Josh Pate like skeptics or haters out there in Big 12 country that just view him as like way too far in the tank for the SEC. I don't think that's particularly fair, even though obviously, yes, he is an SEC guy, but he had a great quote about this when he was talking about this. And back to the question I asked earlier, how much hope do you have that some change could actually happen here? Well, a part of the reason I have some hope is because of the way that Josh Pate kind of analyzed it, right? A guy who's pretty well connected and has a very influential voice. So here's what Josh Pate said about it. Quote, if you carry it out to its logical conclusion in the best interest of college athletics overall, instead of just in the best interest of the Big Two, there would be a lot of end results that may not thrill the SEC and Big Ten. So the multi-billion-dollar question will be, do you have the power to pull that off? That, I think, is how you boil it all down. And I'm going to paraphrase on this here, but earlier in that segment, Josh Pate basically said, yeah, I'm cool with them doing that. Like, that's fine. This is not going to be this utopian Big Ten SEC world anymore where they have a complete vice grip on everything, literally everything. But that's okay because I think it will be better for the sport overall. All right. So I would encourage you to go listen to that whole segment as well. But look, I think the pushback that I really was getting from Greg in a lot of ways is about, well, hey, what happens to the Big Ten and all this if we're going to reorganize into geographically based leagues? Okay. The SEC and the Big Ten both will really kind of cease to exist here. I don't know if you would still keep names for the conferences here. I remember looking at the Project Rudy proposal at one point. I don't know that they had the same names for some of these conferences, but they were broken up more by like 10-ish team geographical conferences. You could do like 7 of those, obviously, if you have 70 teams overall that are here. So there's a lot of people from the SEC and Big Ten that are like, why are we breaking up the conference? We're losing all this history and tradition and whatever. Whereas I think, Big 12, ACC, Group of 5, everyone else is like, well, to hell with that. So you guys have busted up all our tradition. Ask the Pac-12 about tradition. Like, who cares if your tradition's going away? But that's one of those things that wouldn't make the Big Ten or the SEC very happy, right? Why do they need to do that? Well, I would again say it is for their greater good in the long term, but I can understand if I were them, I probably wouldn't feel great about it right now. And I think that's some of it. But even beyond that, if you're the Big Ten, like you're losing more by having to divide up into geographic conferences because your league right now is coast to coast. Like that's been the whole advantage of what the Big Ten has done. Like they've got footholds all over the place, man, all over the entire country. And you're definitely going to have some recreation, basically, the Pac-12 under Project Rudy, where, hey, there goes the entire West Coast wing of the Big Ten. No more. And so I think Greg was trying to say, now you can go look on Twitter at JL Kurtz, see the back and forth. And I don't want to speak totally for him, but I understand. Look, if I were a Big Ten fan, I'm sure I would probably feel very much the same way. Like, yeah, man, why do I need to relinquish this power? This system's pretty great for us right now. It'd be tough to be concerned about the real long term. Why am I going to be concerned about eating my vegetables when I got a plate full of cheeseburgers and candy right here? This tastes awesome. I don't need to move on to anything else. So I get it, but I don't think that it's some like real conspiracy against the Big Ten or anything like that here. I just think it's like that would be collateral damage in order to achieve what to me would be a much more utopian, not just college football view, but college sports enterprise, because the geographic conferences, again, would help a ton with schools not having to spend all this money on travel. It would be better for the student athletes. It makes so much more logical sense. It brings back regional rivalries much more easily. There's so much about it that really, if you were, because again, this goes back to the argument, if you were just building the sport from scratch right now, you would do it like this. You wouldn't do it like where the Big Ten has Oregon and Rutgers in it. You would not do it that way at all. It makes zero sense. And that's a part of my pushback too when I hear, well, this Big Ten tradition that would be thwarted. What Big Ten tradition? Again, you're in a conference now that includes Oregon and Rutgers. Like, what tradition do Oregon and Rutgers have playing each other? Okay, that's not the tradition. And if you're keeping like a 10-team conference in like the upper Midwest, most of those teams that have all the deep history together will still be together. You would still have that tradition, in the way this would geographically break down. So I don't know. I'm just not here for like, well, the Big Ten has all this great tradition and history. They've blown a lot of that up. They had a lot of great tradition and history with the Pac-12, and they voluntarily blew that up. So I don't know. Look, coming to the Big 12 for any sort of sympathy on that is the wrong place to go, because the Big 12 has non-voluntarily lost teams on multiple occasions now that have blown up the history of that conference, and not just the Big 12 teams that have played each other since the Big 8 days for 100 years. And that stuff has gone by the wayside too, for the benefit of other conferences. So you're just not going to find much sympathy around here for that. Now, the other thing, and this is something where I was like, okay, fair to bring this point up, is Greg and others being like, well, the Big 12 fans now, like, they don't care about the G5 schools who get screwed in Project Rudy. And it's just the same thing as the SEC and Big 10 who don't care about Big 12 or ACC when they do all their things, or Pac-12, et cetera. And my answer is like, well, yeah. Yes, you're correct. Yes. I mean, look, in an ideal world, I wish we could just turn back the clock and go back to 2000 and use that model that we had there and keep G5 schools to where they're still somewhat. I'm all for that. But I also think 70 teams is better than 40 being included. I'm not going to let perfect be the enemy of good. I think 70 teams being included as opposed to 40 teams being included, which is where we appear to be headed right now, if this thing stays on the same track, I think that's still better for everybody, And okay, is it selfish and we're in a dog-eat-dog world? Yes, it is. Who set the tone on that? Because it was not the Big 12. The Big 12 had to learn, after years of being picked at and being left as a rotting carcass on the side of the road, the Big 12 had to learn, all right, you got to fight for yourself, man. You got to fight for yourself. And if it means delivering one of the kill shots of the Pac-12, which, don't get it twisted, it was the Big 10 that killed the Pac-12. But for the Big 12 to be there to just, as it's bleeding out on the ground, put the final bullet into the head to make sure it's dead, you got to do it, man. You got to do it, or else you could be the one you've been left on the side of the road before, but you got nursed back to health. There was a good Samaritan there to help out, which I guess was the Longhorn Network, ironically, at one point. Anyway, mixing a lot of metaphors here, but you get the idea, right? The Big 12 is not the one who set the tone on that. The Big 12 is just doing what you have to do in this environment that's been created by TV and that's been created by the Big 10 and the SEC. So I'm just not here for like a lot of shaming the Big 12 for that. Come on. If you're a group of 5 school, if you're a Boise fan, like what, fine. Yes. Come down on the Big 12. That is totally fair. I understand your criticism and I get it. That's fine. I'm not going to hear much of that from up above. And now again, look, I love Greg. I think Greg is very sharp and he's really connected. If you're looking for like inside info, that is definitely type of show to go to. Peek Around the Corner College Football. Go check it out. No hard feelings at all here. It was a good discussion on all that. And hey, as a Big 12 fan, the fact that I'm seeing somebody in Big 10 country be concerned in that regard about this, I'm not saying that Greg thinks this is the overwhelmingly likely outcome or anything like that, but that he is entertaining it and having to have those discussions. I'm like, hey guys, this is why I'm saying this is a good thing. Like, wake up and pay attention. This is a good thing that the Big 12 is potentially getting some, well, not potentially, the Big 12 is getting somebody with an ear to the president in Cody Campbell right now, when changes could be enacted in an environment that I think everybody looks at politically and says, well, who knows where the hell they're actually going to go with decisions about anything like this. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. So, I mean, hang on to your butts, I guess is what I would say. Hang on to your butts. Here, okay, I know I have some super chats. I'm going to get to you guys in just a moment. I really, really appreciate it. I'm going to use this just because I think it's a perfect way to cap off this segment with what is being said here from Harold. So Harold says, you mean come up with a system where the small schools continue to steal from the big ones? Okay, well, first of all, steal. There's a lot with this, Harold. If we're going to talk about steal, again, you are underestimating, if you're a big school, how much you need the small schools. You need the schools to be there to beat up on, and you need those schools to be there to have large fan bases that still are passionate and care and will watch the other games between just big brands if you want to make it a sea to shining sea sport that everybody cares about, which will keep the money machine churning for you. It does not work like just complete late capitalism and you cut everything else out and you have all the advantages and nothing else. No, the bottom drops out at some point. So that's just such a short-sighted way to look at it. Okay. It's such a short-sighted way to look at it. And it makes me sad that you would have that attitude about this sport. So I hate that. I really, really hate that attitude. And this is exactly what this would help preserve. Okay. It would help preserve a much better ecosystem for everybody. Harold, why? I mean, how much is enough? How much is enough for schools up at the top? Like Big Ten and SEC schools, I mean, it is tilted so heavily in your advantage right now, and you still want to sit there and complain about this? Why? That is just such an unhealthy attitude. College football does not need to be run just like ruthless late capitalism. That's not good for anybody. And that's not what has made this an awesome sport that everybody loves. If you're Alabama, Mississippi State has been a part of the fabric of that conference and rivalries and the Egg Bowl. I mean, Ole Miss and Mississippi State, how much have they been really that relevant at the top of the SEC? It's not all that often, but that's a huge part of the sport and what we love and why there are huge ratings and why so much passion from everybody all the way around. Why the hell there's nobody who truly loves college football that can really honestly have that opinion. If you're getting high and mighty on kind of short-term greed and this feeling of power and I can talk down to all these people on Twitter because I can say how much we make, how much my school makes versus how much your school makes. That's what it is. But all this is coming from an unhealthy place. If you're somebody who truly loves college football and truly loves the sport, you can't have that attitude about it. That attitude about it is not it. That's not why we love college football. So I hate that, Harold. I'm sorry.